Since he entered the NFL following the 2018 NFL Draft, Lamar Jackson has quickly catapulted himself to the forefront of the national media's attention. And for such a soft-spoken guy, he has proven to be incredibly polarizing. There is no shortage of opinions bouncing around on the dual-threat quarterback. People are still split. His haters think he's a run-first injury waiting to happen who will never develop into a premier NFL passer. These haters started to come out of the woodworks ahead of the 2018 NFL Draft, which Lamar was ultimately taken 32nd in, despite having had an unbelievable college career, which included winning the Heisman Trophy at Louisville. On the surface, he appears to be a great guy and a hard worker. So why has all the hate started to pile up? I don't know. But once the floodgates opened, it got nasty. On the flip side, Lamar Jackson fans would argue that he already has started to develop into an excellent passer. And if you press them on this value, they would rave about his intangibles, the leadership, the work ethic, all the little things under the hood that you can't necessarily prove, but man, are they important. And interestingly, his supporters are equally as outspoken as his detractors, perhaps reactively, but they have let their opinions fly nonetheless. The debate has raged on so long and so fiercely that now it sort of feels like we have reached a point of Lamar Jackson fatigue, through no fault of Jackson's obviously. The media just can't stop discussing his value, both in the present and down the road. But amongst all the Lamar hype and hate, one major storyline has somehow fallen by the wayside, and that is what a challenging upbringing he had. Now his ability to overcome it has played into his success in football and in life. It's no secret that Lamar was born with insane athleticism and more than enough God-given talent, but that could have all fallen by the wayside if he had succumbed to the tragedies and circumstances that plagued his early life. His story starts in Boynton Beach, the football-crazed pocket of southern Florida where he grew up. Way before Jackson was an MVP candidate for the Baltimore Ravens or a Heisman Trophy winner at the University of Louisville, he was a swift-footed Pop Warner standout who absolutely blew his coaches' minds with his skills on the youth football fields. But it wasn't just his natural ability that impressed the coaches, it was his work ethic. Van Warren, who goes by Peanut and was his coach in Pop Warner, explained to the Baltimore Sun that the area has always been loaded with a ton of talented players, but so many of them lack Jackson's drive, saying, "When you see kids that have that gift, they don't tend to work on it. The greatest thing with Lamar was that he continued to work." So where did his motor, his work ethic, come from? Warren says it was his mother, Felicia Jones, who has famously remained steadfast that her son was a quarterback and went to bat for her young son against any coach who tried to tell him otherwise. She never let him change his position, Warren said. And Warren saw that work ethic firsthand. Every weekend for hours on end, he would run Jackson through a litany of complex agility drills and brutal conditioning tests, and without fail, Jackson answered the bell every time. Warren maintains that it was the tight bond Lamar and Felicia had that made him such a special kid. He sums it up plain and simple, saying, the work ethic came from her. It's a sentiment that Lamar echoed to the Courier-Journal while he was at Louisville, saying, "My immediate family is my mom. Everything goes around her. I'm a mama's boy. That's my baby. That's my mama. She's the one who keeps me motivated no matter what. She's driving me." While touching, it wasn't always that way, and unfortunately their beautiful story together was, in some ways, born from tragedy. Lamar, you see, like most young boys, was always a daddy's boy growing up. That was until 2005, when he was just 8 years old and lost his father in a car accident. And within that same 24 hours, he lost his grandmother, a devastating turn of events that would change Lamar Jackson forever. Felicia Jones and Lamar Jackson are very private people, but there was one pivotal conversation from that day that really kickstarted their road to recovery and Lamar's ascent to greatness that has since gotten out. Jones took her 8-year-old son aside and told him not to cry, that they would do better and amount to something, regardless of the circumstances. Wow, powerful stuff. From that moment, the two became an unstoppable duo with an us-against-the-world mentality, hell-bent on making the most of Lamar's gifts. And Felicia was a huge part of that development. She started to play the role of both the mother and the father, playing football with her boys in their small backyard and leading them on training runs to and from the local Walmart. But even with all that dedication and all of Lamar's talent, it was never easy. Jackson grew up in a meager apartment building about 2 miles away from McNair Park, the field he would train with Peanut at. It was located in the center of an economically depressed section of Boynton Beach, an area that Jackson describes as not like a place you would go visit. They lived there until he was finishing school, when his mother decided to move the family about 30 minutes north to Palm Beach County. where Lamar would play the first of his high school football at Santa Lucis High. It was far from smooth sailing, though. He only played in spurts his freshman year and sat out his sophomore year entirely, putting their plans for Lamar's future very much in doubt. They decided it was time for a change, and Lamar transferred to Boynton Beach in the spring of 2013, where he did not take long to start making a splash. A high school friend and teammate, Traquan Smith, depicted his first practice at Boynton Beach in awe, saying, "Our first spring practice, he just took off and started shaking people. I played safety, so it was my job to tackle him. I just remember he was on me so fast." Yeah, that sounds like the Lamar Jackson that football fans all over have grown accustomed to seeing. Because Lamar was so skinny and had yet to consistently play at the high school level, he was hardly on any college coaches' radars at that point, but that was all about to change. During his first season at Boynton Beach, they faced off against Miami Central, a football powerhouse that was ranked number 3 in the country at the time, and led by current NFL star Dalvin Cook. His team was completely overmatched, but Lamar still stood out, throwing for 237 yards and running for 180 yards, including a 72-yard touchdown. But what was even more impressive to his coaches and teammates, and more importantly, the scouts watching the game for several Miami prospects, was the swagger and poise he displayed on the field. Never once did he look intimidated or overwhelmed, even amid all the chaos that playing such a talented team invokes. And eventually, some college coaches started to come around on this skinny, lightning-fast quarterback from Pompano Beach. The only problem, so many of them saw the athlete, not the quarterback, and that did not sit well with Felicia Jones. I understand the temptation to try and convert the relatively raw quarterback into a wide receiver or a defensive back. I mean, when you see that kind of athleticism, it is hard not to associate it with one of those positions. But to try and coerce Lamar into changing positions was selling the mind and the worker in Lamar Jackson short, something that he and Felicia were not going to let happen. She sent every college coach who merely dangled a change from quarterback packing. She wanted a guarantee. Whatever school Lamar was going to, he was going to be the quarterback there and nothing else. No ifs, ands, or buts. And that is exactly what she told Lamar Thomas, Louisville's chief recruiter, when he came a-knocking to try and convince Felicia that Louisville was the right football program for her son. Thomas said he had to work hard to win Felicia over, promising her that her son would have a chance to compete for the quarterback job from the second he arrived on campus. He eventually won her and Jackson over and committed to Louisville. But even that step of his football journey was not all sunshine and rainbows. Even after the promises that Thomas had made, an anonymous assistant coach tempted fate one afternoon at practice when they were struggling to find a competent punt returner. That's when he asked Jackson to go back and field a punt. Unsurprisingly, almost immediately after the practice ended, Felicia was on the phone with the coaching staff, reminding them of the promise that Lamar Thomas and Bobby Petrino had made her son when they were recruiting him to Louisville. Needless to say, Jackson never went back for a punt return in practice ever again, a decision that Jackson rewarded the staff for handsomely as he went on to earn the Heisman Trophy honors as a quarterback and presided over one of the program's best stretches in recent memory. You'd think that all of this would be enough to win over NFL scouts. I mean, Lamar was dominant at the college level. Were there things to work on? Of course. But that is the case with any college prospect. It's foolhardy to expect them to be completely pro-ready coming straight out of college. Apparently, NFL scouts felt that they hadn't seen enough from Jackson as a passer, and they still wanted him to try out as a wide receiver at the NFL Combine, a notion that Felicia Jones very strategically dismissed by advising him to not even participate in the 40-yard dash or the agility drills. This did not please the NFL executives, who saw this as an act of rebellion, something that never goes over well in that circle. It made sense, though. Everyone already knew how explosive he was. There was no need for it. It would just be an added ammunition for coaches waiting for any excuse to change his position. And would that help him get drafted as a quarterback? Her involvement and his decision to heed her advice started all sorts of narratives about Felicia, who was also Lamar's manager and de facto agent. Many started to identify her as some sort of helicopter parent, a LeVar Ball type, so to speak. If you ask me, this was a lazy comparison. She wasn't trying to control Lamar. She wasn't trying to make his story all about her. There were no press conferences, and there was no publicity. She was just doing what she had done for her son since his childhood, looked out for his best interest, and stood up for him when the norm sought to derail him from reaching his goal. But of course, the helicopter parent story was a narrative that the media ran with, and unfortunately it hurt Lamar's draft stock. At the end of the day, it did accomplish the family's goal of getting him drafted to the Baltimore Ravens, a franchise that wanted him to play quarterback. Who cares if she ruffled a few feathers along the way? Sure, well, he went later than I'm sure he wanted to. He was still a first-round pick, and he was drafted to play the position he'd played since he was 8 years old. The position he was, in his words, born to play. Not too shabby for Felicia's first go-round as an agent in one of the most cutthroat businesses out there. Lamar Thomas summed Felicia and Lamar's relationship up well. It's not that she's trying to, in my opinion, control him. They've been through a lot together. For them to want to stay together and try to do this thing together, that's the way they've always been. They just rather the play do the talking. Lamar Jackson overcame the odds at every turn to get where he is today, and instead of arguing incessantly over what has proven without a shadow of a doubt to be an issue of his past, maybe all of the people on the outside should just sit back and enjoy the show. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to click the subscribe button down below. If you liked the video, then like the video. We'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, don't forget to tune into TPS every single day for more cool videos.